The camera was already recording when Detective Mark Ellis leaned forward and whispered, "Say that again." The man across the table smiled, but it wasn't a normal smile. It looked wrong, like he knew something nobody else did. His name was Daniel Reeves, and his hands were cuffed to the metal table. The room was quiet except for a faint buzzing sound from the old light above them. "I said," Daniel repeated softly, "she's not where you think she is." Detective Ellis froze. Behind the glass wall, two officers looked at each other, confused. They had searched everywhere for the missing girl. Every room. Every inch of Daniel's house. There was nowhere else she could be. Ellis swallowed. "Then where is she?" Daniel tilted his head slowly, like he was listening to something far away. "She's closer than you think." At that moment, a loud thud echoed through the station. Everyone jumped. The sound came from inside the building. Ellis stood up quickly, his chair scraping the floor. "What was that?" Daniel's smile grew wider. Another thud followed, louder this time. Then a faint sound. A cry. A child's voice. Ellis rushed toward the door, but before he could reach it, Daniel started laughing. And that was when everything changed. 3 days earlier, the case had seemed simple. A 9-year-old girl named Emily Carter had gone missing from her quiet neighborhood in Ohio. She had been playing outside her house in the late afternoon. Her mother stepped inside for just 5 minutes. When she came back, Emily was gone. No signs of struggle. No screams. Just silence. The police searched the whole area. Neighbors were questioned. Cameras were checked. Nothing made sense. Then they found Daniel Reeves. He lived 2 houses away. A quiet man. Kept to himself. Worked from home. No family. No friends visiting. But one neighbor said something strange. "I saw Emily talking to him the day before she disappeared," she told the police. That was enough to bring Daniel in for questioning. At first, he seemed calm. Too calm. He answered questions slowly. Carefully. "No, I didn't see her that day. No, I don't know where she is. No, I didn't take her." But something felt off. Detective Ellis noticed it right away. Daniel didn't act scared. He didn't act angry. He acted patient. Like he was waiting for something. So they searched his house. Every room. Every closet. Every drawer. They even brought in dogs. Nothing. No sign of Emily. Still, Ellis couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. So he brought Daniel back in. That was when the interrogation started. Back in the present, the sound came again. A weak cry. "Help!" Ellis's heart dropped. He looked at Daniel, his voice shaking. "Where is she?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, still smiling. "I told you," he said softly. "Closer than you think." Ellis burst out of the room and ran down the hallway. Officers followed him, trying to find where the sound was coming from. The cry came again. From below. Ellis stopped suddenly. The basement. But that didn't make sense. The station didn't have a basement, did it? He turned to one of the officers. "Get the building plans." "No." Behind them, the faint cry turned into a desperate scream. And just as Ellis realized the terrifying truth, the lights flickered, then went out completely. The lights snapped off, and the hallway fell into darkness. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then the screaming got louder. "Help me!" Detective Mark Ellis didn't think he ran. "Flashlights! Now!" he shouted. Officers fumbled in the dark. A few beams of light cut through the black, shaking as hands trembled. The sound of the girl's voice echoed from below again, weak but desperate. "It's under us," Ellis said. "There has to be a way down." "But this building doesn't have a basement," one officer replied, his voice tight with fear. Ellis turned sharply. "Then why can we hear her?" No one had an answer. The scream came again, closer this time, or maybe it just felt that way. Ellis ran toward the back of the station. "Check storage rooms. Check everything." Doors slammed open one by one. Closets. Supply rooms. Empty offices. Dust and silence filled each space. Then, "Detective! Over here!" Ellis rushed toward the voice. A young officer stood near an old metal door at the end of the hallway. It looked different from the others, older, scratched, almost hidden behind stacked boxes. "I've never seen this door before," the officer said. Ellis grabbed the handle. Locked. The girl cried again, louder now, like she was right beneath them. Ellis stepped back. "Move." He kicked the door hard. Once. Twice. On the third hit, the lock snapped, and the door swung open with a loud crack. A cold wave of air rushed out. The smell hit them next. Damp. Old. Like something had been sealed away for a long time. A narrow staircase led down into darkness. The crying was clear now. "She's down there," Ellis said, already moving. "Wait," another officer started, but Ellis was gone. He ran down the steps, the beam of his flashlight shaking. The stairs creaked under his weight. The air grew colder with every step. At the bottom, he stopped. The room was small. Concrete walls. No windows. And in the center, a metal box. It looked like a storage container. Thick. Locked from the outside. The crying was coming from inside it. Ellis's chest tightened. "Emily!" A weak voice answered. "Help, please." "She's alive," Ellis shouted. He rushed forward and pulled at the latch. Locked. "Get me something to break this," he yelled. Officers crowded behind him, panic rising. One handed him a crowbar. Ellis jammed it into the lock and pulled with all his strength. "Nothing." "Come on," he growled. Inside the box, Emily cried again, louder now, scared. "Hurry." Ellis pushed harder. The metal groaned. Then, click. The lock snapped. Ellis threw the lid open. Inside, curled up and shaking, was Emily Carter. Her face was pale. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She blinked in the bright light, scared and confused. Ellis dropped to his knees. "You're okay. You're safe now." Officers quickly lifted her out, wrapping her in a blanket. "We need an ambulance," someone shouted. But Ellis didn't move. He stared at the box. It didn't make sense. This room, this box, none of it was in the building plans. He turned slowly. Who knew about this place? No one answered. Upstairs, the power suddenly came back on. Lights flickered to life. Radios buzzed again. And then, a voice crackled through Ellis's radio. "Detective, you need to get back to the interrogation room. Now." Ellis grabbed the radio. "Why? What happened?" There was a pause. Then the officer's voice came back, shaking. "He's gone." Ellis froze. "What do you mean, gone?" "The suspect, Daniel Reeves." Another pause. "He disappeared." Detective Mark Ellis didn't wait for another word. He ran. Up the narrow stairs, through the broken door, and into the bright hallway. Officers moved aside as he rushed past them, his shoes pounding hard against the floor. "Lock down the building," he shouted. "No one leaves." His heart raced. His mind spun. Daniel Reeves was handcuffed. He was inside a locked room. There was no way he could just disappear. Ellis reached the interrogation room and pushed the door open. Empty. The chair was still there. The table was still there. The camera was still recording. But Daniel was gone. The cuffs dangled from one side of the table, open. Ellis stepped inside slowly, his eyes scanning every corner. "This isn't possible." An officer behind him spoke in a low voice. "We checked the hallway cameras. No one came in. No one went out." Ellis turned sharply. "That's not possible either." But then he looked at the screen. The live camera feed from inside the room. Ellis walked closer. "Rewind it," he said. The officer pressed a button. The video rolled back. There was Daniel, sitting calmly in his chair, just like before. Smiling. Waiting. Ellis watched carefully. Every second. Every movement. Daniel leaned forward slightly. Then he looked straight into the camera. And smiled wider. Ellis felt a chill run down his spine. "Pause it," he said. The officer froze the frame. Daniel's eyes stared straight ahead right at them. Ellis swallowed. "Play it again." Slowly, the video moved forward. Daniel's lips began to move. But no sound came from the recording. Still, Ellis could read them. Word by word. You opened it. Ellis frowned. What does that mean? Then, in the video, Daniel slowly leaned back in his chair. The light above him flickered, just like it had before. Then, the video glitched. For 1 second, the screen filled with static. When it cleared, Daniel was gone. No movement. No struggle. Just gone. The cuffs fell open onto the table. Ellis stepped back, his breathing heavy. That's not real. No one spoke. No one could. Then another officer rushed into the room. Detective, you need to hear this. Ellis turned. What now? The girl. Emily. Ellis's chest tightened. Is she okay? She's alive, the officer said quickly. But she's saying something strange. Ellis didn't hesitate. Take me to her. Emily sat on a hospital bed in a small room inside the station. A blanket was wrapped tightly around her. Her hands shook as she held a cup of water. A medic knelt beside her, speaking gently. You're safe now, Emily. You can tell us what happened. Ellis stepped closer, his voice soft. Emily, do you remember who took you? She nodded slowly. Ellis felt a small sense of relief. Can you tell me who it was? Emily looked up at him. Her eyes were wide, scared, but also confused. It was the man, she whispered. Ellis leaned in. Daniel Reeves. She shook her head. Ellis blinked. No. Emily's voice trembled. He looked like him, but it wasn't him. The room went quiet. Ellis felt his stomach twist. What do you mean? Emily's grip tightened on the cup. He smiled the same way, she said. He talked the same way. Her voice dropped to a whisper. But his face kept changing. Ellis froze. Emily's eyes filled with tears. And he said something, she added. Ellis's voice was barely a whisper now. What did he say? Emily looked straight at him. He said, I'm not the one you caught. Ellis stepped back slowly. His mind raced. If the man in custody wasn't the real one, then who had they been questioning? And more importantly, where was the real Daniel Reeves? Before anyone could speak again, the lights flickered once more. The room dimmed. Emily suddenly gasped and pointed toward the corner of the room. Her voice broke into a scream. He's here. Emily's scream cut through the room like a knife. He's here. Detective Mark Ellis spun around fast, his hand reaching for his flashlight even though the lights were only flickering, not fully out. Where? He shouted. Emily pointed with a shaking finger toward the dark corner of the room. There. He was just there. Ellis moved quickly, shining his light into the corner. Nothing. Just a chair. A small cabinet. And shadows that didn't look right. The medic stepped back, clearly scared. There's no one there. Emily shook her head wildly. He was there. He was watching me. Ellis walked slowly toward the corner, his heart pounding. The air felt colder again, just like in the hidden basement. Everyone stay calm, he said, though his own voice was tight. He checked behind the cabinet. Empty. He checked the door. Still guarded. Windows. Locked. No way in. No way out. Ellis turned back to Emily. Are you sure you saw him? She nodded, tears running down her face. He smiled at me, the same way. Ellis clenched his jaw. That smile again. Always the smile. Before he could say anything else, his radio crackled loudly. Detective Ellis, come in. Ellis grabbed it. Go ahead. There's something you need to see. In the control room. Ellis frowned. What now? The voice on the radio hesitated. It's the cameras. All of them. Ellis didn't like the sound of that. I'm on my way, he said. He turned to the officers. Stay with her. Don't leave this room. Emily suddenly grabbed his sleeve. Don't go, she whispered. Ellis paused. I have to, he said gently. But you're safe. I promise. She shook her head slowly. No, you don't understand. Ellis leaned closer. What is it? Her voice dropped to a whisper. He doesn't like it when you leave. Ellis felt a chill crawl up his back. But he pulled away and left the room anyway. The control room was filled with tension. Several officers stood in front of a wall of monitors, all showing different parts of the station. Hallways, rooms, entrances, everything. Ellis stepped in. What am I looking at? One officer pointed at the screens. Watch. Ellis looked closer. At first, everything seemed normal. Officers walking, doors opening and closing, people talking. Then, Ellis froze. On one screen, he saw himself, standing in the hospital room, talking to Emily. But that wasn't possible. He was here, right now. Ellis turned slowly. That's not live footage. The officer shook his head. It is. Ellis stepped closer to the screen. On it, he moved. Same face, same clothes, same everything. The version of Ellis on the screen leaned closer to Emily. Too close. And then, it smiled. Not a normal smile. The same smile. Ellis stumbled back. No. Another officer spoke, voice shaking. It's not just that camera. Look at the others. Ellis forced himself to look. Every screen showed something wrong. In one hallway, an officer walked past. Then another version of him followed behind, copying his steps exactly. In another room, a chair moved slightly on its own. In the interrogation room, Ellis's breath caught. Daniel Reeves was sitting there again, smiling, looking straight at the camera. Turn that off. Ellis snapped. We can't, the officer replied. It won't shut down. On the screen, Daniel slowly raised his hand and waved. Ellis felt his chest tighten. Then Daniel leaned forward, his lips moving again. No sound, but Ellis could read them. You let me out. Ellis shook his head. No, we didn't. The lights flickered again. Harder this time. The screens glitched. Static flashed across all monitors at once. Then everything went black. For 2 full seconds, the room was silent. When the screens came back on, Ellis's blood ran cold. Every camera now showed the same thing. The hospital room. Emily sitting on the bed, alone. Ellis's eyes widened. Where are the officers? No one answered. On the screen, Emily slowly turned her head, as if she was listening to something. Then, she smiled. The same smile, and spoke in a voice that was not her own. You're too late. At that exact moment, a loud scream echoed from down the hallway. The scream tore through the hallway, sharp and full of fear. Detective Mark Ellis didn't wait. He ran. The control room door slammed behind him as he rushed toward the hospital room. Officers followed close, their footsteps loud, their breathing uneven. No one goes in alone, someone shouted. But Ellis was already ahead. He reached the door and pushed it open hard. Inside, chaos. The 2 officers who had been guarding Emily were on the floor, groaning, trying to move. Nothing looked broken, but it was clear they had been hit or thrown. Emily! Ellis shouted. She was still on the bed, sitting upright, perfectly still. Her head slowly turned toward him. For a second, everything felt normal. Then she smiled. Not her smile. That same twisted, quiet smile. Ellis stopped in his tracks. Emily, it's me. She tilted her head, just like Daniel had done. No, she said softly. Her voice echoed slightly, like 2 voices speaking at once. It's not. Ellis felt the air grow cold again. Officers behind him raised their weapons, unsure what they were even aiming at. Stay back, Ellis said quietly. He stepped closer, one slow step at a time. Emily, listen to me. You're safe. Whatever this is, it's not real. Her smile widened. You still don't understand, she said. Then her body went still. Too still. Her eyes locked onto his. And for a moment, her face changed. Not fully, but enough. Like something was moving underneath it. Ellis froze. Behind him, one officer whispered, "What is that?" Emily blinked. And suddenly, she collapsed forward. "Emily!" Ellis rushed to her side. He caught her before she hit the floor. Her body was limp, but she was breathing. Normal again. The smile was gone. "Call medical!" Ellis shouted. The tension in the room broke slightly as officers moved in. But Ellis didn't feel relief. Not yet. He looked up slowly. The room felt wrong. Like something was still there. Watching. Waiting. Then his radio crackled. "Detective, we found something." Ellis grabbed it quickly. "What is it?" "It's the basement room. You need to see this." Ellis hesitated, then gently handed Emily over to the medics. "I'm coming." The hidden room felt even colder now. Ellis stepped inside slowly. The metal box sat in the center, just like before. But now, it was open. Empty. An officer stood nearby, pale. "It's the inside. You need to look." Ellis walked closer. He shined his flashlight inside the box. At first, he didn't understand what he was seeing. Then it hit him. The inside walls were covered in scratches. Deep ones. Layer over layer. Like someone had been trying to claw their way out for a very long time. Ellis swallowed hard. "That wasn't from today." The officer shook his head. "No, sir." Ellis stepped back slowly. "If Emily was only in here for a few hours." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Something else had been in that box. For much longer. Then another officer spoke from behind him. "Detective, there's more." Ellis turned. "What now?" "We checked the records for this building." Ellis frowned. "And?" The officer hesitated. "This station, it wasn't always a police station." Ellis felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. "What was it?" The officer looked him straight in the eyes. "An old holding facility for criminal suspects." Ellis's mind raced. Cells. Detention. People locked away. "Years ago," the officer continued, "there was an incident." Ellis's voice dropped. "What kind of incident?" The officer swallowed. "A man was arrested. Suspected of kidnapping a child." Ellis's heart pounded. "What was his name?" The officer looked down at the paper in his hands. Then read it aloud. "Daniel Reeves." The room went silent. Ellis felt like the ground shifted under him. "That's not possible," he said. "We just had him." "Not the same one," the officer said quickly. "This case was over 20 years ago." Ellis stared at him. "What happened to that Daniel Reeves?" The officer's face went pale. "He disappeared while in custody." Ellis's breath caught. "Just vanished." The officer nodded slowly. "They never found him." The cold air seemed to press in around them. Ellis looked back at the metal box. Then at the walls. Then at the door. His voice was barely a whisper. "So whatever we brought in." "It wasn't him," the officer finished. At that exact moment, the lights in the basement went out again. Total darkness. Then, a voice echoed softly through the room. Right behind Ellis. "I never left." Ellis spun around. But there was no one there. Then something cold brushed past him. And for the first time since the case began, Detective Mark Ellis felt truly afraid. The lights flickered back on. Everything looked normal again. Too normal. But one thing had changed. On the concrete wall, written in deep, fresh scratches, 4 simple words appeared. "You opened it again."